I'm not going to read the
Who knows?
Okay.
I'm going to take it to my grave home. Because my father worked for Congress. This means a lot to me.
So the congressional record was read into the record on June 8th, because this was to be presented to Gloria at her retirement celebration at the Crystal Ballroom, but Congressman was not able to be there and he wanted to present it to her. So Gloria was in Washington this past week and he had the opportunity to present it to her. So on behalf of the House of Representatives and Congressman Shaka Patel, we present to you this congressional record. Thank you. God.
Good morning. And before I start, I would like one of these handsome young gentlemen to bring a chair up here and sit next to me. And whoever in the audience has some Kleenex, I'm going to be surprised if I can make this through without crying. Mary was my partner in crime for over 27 years. She came to PEC as a volunteer. You sit down, Missy. And right. And she was there when I came to PEC. Casper Morris, Julia Jackson, who is in a nursing home unfortunately today. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, are you here? Where's Mr. Williams? He's probably cleaning up somewhere. He's always making the place perfect. There was a group of 7 individuals, and we were in a church basement. And I do remember when they threw us out of the church, and they said, "You got to go." So we went around, and I spotted this building, and I came over here, and I think Rich, you were there, and a couple of people, and somebody said to me, "Gloria, you can see the sky. You walk in and you can see the sky. That means there's rain damage." And I'm like, that's okay. That's why they have builders. And then somebody else said, "Now I want you to come over here." And they made me stand right here. And I looked down the building, and the building looked like this. It was totally bulged out. It was pregnant. And I said to myself, "So the building is a little pregnant, what's the matter with that?" And they said, "Oh, you don't get it. You've got to get the star bolts, and we've got to pull it all together, and this is a big thing." And I actually just said, "Well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it." And it wasn't easy. I must say, no job is easy. The first time we applied for funds, we didn't get them. I was heartbroken. I can remember getting the call from DC. "Oh no, you guys didn't get the money." It's like, "Well, we should have gotten the money. We're going to do the..." So, nose to the grindstone again. We had a team like no other team. We had John Rosenthal, who is almost as handsome as Rich Barnhart, who has since left us. Helen Bigham, who was our pillar. We had Dre Dayton, who was our financial expert. Every piece of paper we got, he was a pencil and paper guy, and he would go through the budget, and he would come to our accountant and say, "You made a mistake here." And the accountant said, "I can't make a mistake. This is Excel. This is Lotus 1, 2, 3. And Dre would say, "However, right here you have double counted this number." And so the guy with the Excel 1, 2, 3 or whatever it was had to go back and redo this. And Dre was amazing. So it was the 3 of us, John and Rich, and our lawyer Mark Schwartz, who took me from hither to yon. There were days when I was walking down the street and he's talking about low-income housing tax credits. By the way, not a simple concept. It just isn't. You got the IRS, you got the HUD, you got the this, you got that. There was one day I was walking down the street and I thought if I tipped my head over, all the information was going to fall out because I was learning so much at once. But it got done. And it got done because of Lucian Blackwell and because of Chaka Vata and Vincent, we got everybody behind us. I went door to door. I'm sorry I didn't see Elsie Wise here. Pownton Village Civic Association. Oh, okay, Elsie was with us. Katie was with us. Pownton Village was with us. God bless them. We thought that was a little bit of a drag. We had to drag them into the fold. They said, "You're going to have homeless people there. They're going to be lined up all over the street." I mean, really, that was a fun neighborhood meeting. They were like yelling at us, and finally somebody in the audience stood up and said, "You know what, when I went over there, they gave me a bag of food and I really needed it that day." And somebody else stood up in the audience and said, "They've always been there when we needed them." And somebody else stood up in the audience and I said, "You know what, when you walk the walk, the people who you help, they stand up behind you." And so Pownton Village finally signed the zoning stuff. We had Belmont, we had West Pownton, and Saunders Park. There's actually 5 neighborhoods here. And we had Rick Redding at the Planning Commission. And of course, did I mention Lucian? We had Lucian Blackwell in City Council, and he wasn't going to let anything not happen because he knew, he and his wife Janie sat with poor people when they came in their office and they had no place to go. And he sent them to PEC. And I'm going to keep telling stories. So anyway, all of a sudden, this job here was going to be a non-union job. That was the original plan. And then we were called by somebody in, was it the Shab administration? The Casey, and I think it was Casey Sr. Anyway, we got called by a Democrat who was in Harrisburg and told us, "Listen, you guys can do this as a non-union job. Legally, you can do it like that. However, if you do it like that, there's not going to be another homeless shelter built in this state." Do you remember that? That never happened, of course. But the phone call came through. We're all sitting around trying to figure out how to make it happen. And I said to John Rosenthal, I said, "John, by the end of the day, you know, God wants this to happen. We're taking care of God's people." And when we left the meeting, the decision was made. Rich, John, and his investors put $750,000 of their own money into this building. And I said to John, "You know, I told you God was going to make it happen. I just didn't tell you God was going to reach into your wallet." But he has mysterious ways. We've renovated since. We did a renovation about 10 years ago, and we just renovated again. And believe it or not, it costs more to do this renovation than it did to do the original building. I want to tell you something sad while I'm talking about Lucian Blackwell, who's gone, and Dre Dayton, and Helen Bigham. But this is the picture of the original ribbon cutting. Rich, you see yourself there, and that's Estelle. She moved to the 3rd floor, and that's her daughter Chantel, and that's Sheikha Palmer. And we cut the ribbon. And this young woman went on to get her certificate of nurse's aid, and then went on to get a better job. And her children grew up. This is 20 years ago. Her children grew up, and her oldest child is married and has 2 kids and has a fine job. Her youngest child is also married. Chantel has a baby. Her middle child is dead. We lost him to the streets where we lose lots of young men every year. And we will always do that until all of you continue to join and get behind this organization and the work we do. We take 2 steps forward, but there's always 1 step back. And we need to remember Mark. And we need to remember the moms that came here. We lost at least 1 to domestic violence.